Hey, welcome to the Tulsa World Scene podcast. I'm joined by a special guest who I had the privilege of working with for years and years in the sports department, Bill Haston. Bill recently had a story about Pro Football Hall of Famer Troy Aikman from Henrietta, Oklahoma, and he's got a line of beer coming out. Tell us about that before we get going.
Well, it's interesting. One thing I really respect about Troy is if you think about the most accomplished athletes ever to come out of Oklahoma, he's one of them, right? Three Super Bowls and a Super Bowl MVP and a first player taken overall. And had it not been, I'll always wonder, as you and others will always wonder, what his football life would have looked like had he not broken his leg against Miami in 1985, for the Sooners or with the Sooners at the time. But so then he's gone on to have a actually 23 seasons, 22 as the number one analyst for Fox first and now ESPN ABC. So you would think that he could, spend a lot of time having a good time, right? Or doing nothing or playing a lot of golf or whatever. He's always busy and he has a heck of a work ethic. Anyway, he got inspired at the front end of COVID, Jimmy. He said I knew that people were going to go one of two ways with their nutrition. And they were either going to have really super bad habits or really good habits. And he said, I was determined to get in the best shape of my life, literally my life. And so he said, but I didn't want to give up beer because I like to drink beer. And that's what inspired him to come up with a beer that he says is actually good for you, in moderation, of course. But he and some Oregon State University beer experts, they actually have a food and science department, Jimmy, at Oregon State. And one of the degree programs is like fermentation, something, but you learn how to brew beer, right? Become a master brewer of beer. And so he worked with those people, came up with a recipe and a taste for 8, all caps, 8 EIGHT, Elite Light Lager. And it's a very clean, he during my interview with him last week, he used the word clean at least half a dozen times. And it does have a clean taste, and it doesn't have the classic kind of nasty aftertaste with beer. It's a clean tasting beer, and it debuted in Texas 2 years ago, has done very well. And Troy wanted to expand into the Oklahoma market, which obviously makes all the sense in the world, right? And so it launched in Oklahoma stores yesterday. In fact, I went to a grocery store to get a few items, and there was a big display of 8 beer in a very prominent place. And I saw a couple of people pick up 12 packs. So it's already off and running in Oklahoma. Troy is here tomorrow. Yes, on Wednesday. Troy is here for a private event with distributors and retailers, right? And just getting this thing rolling. And so yeah, Troy is got his own beer now, and the can is cool too, because the way it's designed, there's a navy. It's in Dallas Cowboy colors, which I know you're not a fan of that, Jimmy Don, but it is what it is. So Dallas Cowboy colors, navy, silver, white can, and there's these 2 navy squares above the brand. And if you hold the can just right, the can is a number 8. So I think that was almost like an accidental. It was just good fortune that the can design turned out the way it did. But yeah, Troy's got his own beer now, and it has launched, and I suspect it'll do very well. It's I guess it would be best described as a high-end light beer is what it is.
It's interesting to me. It's funny to me that Troy Aikman is now in the beer business, because I went to his hometown. I think it's 2006, the year he was in the Hall of Fame,
Right.
and an urban legend. And I assume it's true because one of his close friends told me this.
Right.
Troy's in high school in Henrietta, Oklahoma. He takes a date to Tulsa to see a movie. On the way back, they get pulled over by a policeman or
No, this would have happened what, OU years or high school
high
years?
school years. High school
Okay,
years.
I'm sorry if you
He's a
said
high
that.
school kid
Okay, here we
going
go.
to Tulsa to see a movie. On the way back, gets pulled over, and the officer or the trooper comes up to him and says, "Son, have you been drinking?" And he says, "No, sir. I play baseball." As if
Ah,
a baseball player could not, drink. But
right,
that's
right.
pretty classic. But you, number 8, obviously his number. Can,
Yeah, I should have mentioned that about
yeah.
5 minutes ago. Right. That was his
But
number with the Cowboys. Exactly.
has there been another NFL player with that who wore 8 that was great that you can think of?
8. Steve Young.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, didn't he wear 8? I'm kind of
I
asking.
don't know.
I
I
think he
don't know.
did.
Yeah.
But no, it's not it's not like there's so many number 12s in the NFL. Great classic 12s. Let's see. I'm going to cheat here and look up number 8 NFL jersey.
You almost like when somebody does their own number though, instead of doing the easy 12, because so many guys wore 12. Like, go make 19 famous. Go make, if you're Mahomes, go be 15.
Right.
Uh, while you're looking that up, tell folks about you have a long time relationship with Aikman from a professional standpoint.
Right. So in 1992,
Mhm.
the Tulsa World. Here's a quick list of some number 8s, and I'll just grab a few random names here. Morton
Okay.
Anderson, the kicker, was the number 8.
Okay.
Um, wow, not many.
Yeah.
Uh, Sam Bradford, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot about that. Of course, this is alphabetical, so I'm not going to go A to Z, but it's just not as Dante Culpepper. I'm kind of just looking for quarterbacks. Yeah, and Troy wore 18, and Brian Greasy. Troy wore 18 at Oklahoma. And I guess he wore 8 at UCLA and then kept that when he went to Dallas, is what he
Okay.
did. But you talk about the relationship with Troy. I can't say that I have a relationship, but I do have a history with him for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
That in 1992, because partly, honestly, Jimmy, and you were there, and I was there, but the 90s were a pretty wretched decade in this state for college football. And my favorite trivia question is there was only one Oklahoma college football team that won as many as 10 games in any one season that decade. Who was it?
It was Tulsa.
It was 91 Tulsa Hurricane.
Yeah.
That's it. So only 10-win team in that decade. So while college football was wobbling around in that decade, Jimmy Johnson messed around and built a dynasty in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And you remember, like, half of his staff had been at Oklahoma State with him a few years earlier, and then also with him at Miami,
Yeah.
University of Miami. And so there was that local connection with the coaching staff, and then you had Troy quarterback, and you had a half a dozen players. And then after a couple of those first couple of years, Tony Casillas was on the defensive line, and it was just a bunch of Oklahoma connections with that team. And I remember getting a call from Bill Connors, who brought you to Tulsa and brought me to Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Tulsa world legendary columnist, Hall of Fame guy himself. And I remember him calling me and saying, this was like during the summer, and he's of 92. And he said, from now on, we're going to cover Cowboy home games. And so I really didn't start covering Cowboy home games on an every week basis until 93. But 93 through 98, I was at every Dallas home game but one. I was sick for the Randy Moss Thanksgiving Classic when Randy Moss tore Dallas as a rookie, tore Dallas to pieces. I think that was 98. And Barry Lewis had to pinch it for me. It's the only time I've ever missed a game because I was ill, ever. And then there were like an occasional road game, depending on the circumstances and depending on my college football schedule, and then also all the playoff games. So, a bunch of games. But I remember in 95, Troy was kind of upset with the media, and he had stopped doing the Tuesday cubicle interviews that everybody else kind of did, but he was not happy with a couple of media people, so he just quit talking altogether, except for post games.
Yeah.
And so, but I kept every week submitting a request to the Cowboys to talk to Troy. And our media relations contact, Jimmy, at the time was a young, slender guy. You probably maybe remember him named Brett Daniels, great guy with the Cowboys. I don't know why I mentioned that he was a slender guy, but I'm just picturing him in my mind. He looked like a basketball athlete is what this guy looked like. And Brett would say, he's not doing interviews. I'd say, well, just submit the request and let's see what anyway, like week 15, Brett calls and says, Troy will talk. And I jump in a rental car and I zoom to Dallas. I wait all day. And then they say, okay, he's ready for you. And we went to an assistant coach's office or it was like a position group filmed, like a small meeting / film room kind of thing. Anyway, Troy comes in. He's still in his practice gear. He puts his feet up on a table. He puts a half a can of Copenhagen in his lip and says, let's go. And we talked about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you remember that season, 95, he was not happy. They weren't playing well in the second half of the season. That was a Coach Switzer's second season. They weren't playing well offensively. And yet, because of circumstances, they ended up going on to beat your Steelers, in the Super Bowl at the end of that season. But Troy gave me a tremendous interview that day, and I will never really know. Of course, I'm never going to ask him, why did you decide to do that? But was it to just to stick it to the Dallas media and say, well, I'll talk to these guys, but I'm not talking to you. I don't know, and I don't care. I just know we got that interview, and I was really appreciative of that. And then, of course, like over the years, you just kind of cross paths with him for whatever reason. And then the Highway to Henrietta Music Festival in the summer of 22, spent a lot of time around him. And now with 8 Beer, it's another chance last week to talk with him, another chance tomorrow to catch up. So, he just, and now, he's just a guy that you always want to have a connection with because of, he's a Mount Rushmore, Oklahoma athlete, I think. Mickey Mantle, I don't know who that would be. Jim Thorpe, Mickey Mantle, Troy Aikman, we're going to get off in the weeds of a Mount Rushmore here, and then we'd kill 45 minutes. We really can't do that. But Troy Aikman is certainly one of the more accomplished, I would even say, people to come out of Oklahoma, not just athletes, but very, very impressive guy, very impressive. And at 57, Jimmy, the guy looks like he's about 42 years old.
Yeah.
He does. Amazing condition and, good genes, and took good care of himself, and he's having a great life.
And does good work on television on top of that.
He does. No, you could tell. There's another aspect of the work ethic I alluded to earlier. You could tell he does a deep dive on researching every week before those games. Nothing catches him by surprise.
I know why I did the interview with you a long time ago, back in 95.
95?
Yes, because he has a sweet spot for Oklahoma newspapers. His mother was a typesetter at the Henrietta paper back in the day.
Okay.
And he caught some crap from this. He was in he went to a typing contest in Okmulgee. Was the only male and won it. So he has a sweet spot for typers from Oklahoma because of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe he had just heard what you did on the sidewalk out in front of the building one night and wanted to ask me about it. I don't remember. Okay. And just for the record, anybody watching or listening, it wasn't vulgar or wasn't illegal, but it was unforgettable. And if I ever do an autobiography, it'll be that moment will be in that book, Jimmy, and so will our shared experience in that moment at the Jack Santee Lounge at OU.
Yeah. We best not talk about that one either.
The day that Schnellenberger got hired at OU. Yep. Yeah. That's crazy. Jimmy Dunn's been at the Tulsa World 30. Well, we've both been there 30.
Going on 35.
30, creeping up on 35.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm at 33 and a half, whatever it is. So,
Okay. Before we venture then into the forbidden zone, forbidden territory, let's wrap up with Aikman. Give, give me your best Aikman story that we haven't told yet.
Aikman, wow. Well, I mean, this is just kind of a Disney. This would be like a Disney movie scene kind of deal. But you know, when he did that music festival, he wasn't just coming to Henrietta to say, "Hey, look at me, look what I can do, and I can bring all these music hot shots to town." It wasn't that at all. He did it to raise money for Okmulgee and the Henrietta and Okmulgee communities, and really specifically for students and kids. Because there's just not a lot of money in those communities, right? And he gave every student, I forget what the age range was, but like middle school, high school student, maybe, I think like middle school and high school students, every student in those communities, Troy gave them a laptop. He partnered with some company. I don't even remember I don't remember. I shouldn't even guess. I don't remember what computer company he partnered with, but every kid in those communities got a new laptop. Just because they were so behind technologically, you know. And so, and I saw when they had the pep rally to announce the highway to Henrietta, the way people responded to him, how sweet he was to everybody. And they didn't there wasn't like security guys stiff arming people to keep them away. I mean, you know, and he stuck around for all of that. It was about a half a day group hug is what it was. So I really appreciate that about him, that he's, you know, he said he's fired up to come back for his 40th reunion this summer. Think about that. And that's staggering. Sure. That Troy Aikman signed with OU 40 years ago this month, 40 years ago. And the guy still looks the way he looks. But yeah, that was an anniversary that caught me off guard when I was researching for this piece I wrote the other day. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't hung out with him socially, so I don't have any of those kinds of stories. I know that he really is what he seems to be with his hometown, and that's very engaged and proud of it. And he's doing another like a mini concert for his 40th anniversary, 40th reunion class. He's bringing some country artists there, and they're going to have a big weekend. So he's just a really good guy who's had a really great career in life.
Well, again, with urban legend and secondhand information, supposedly when they put up the Henrietta, home of Troy Aikman sign, he gave his blessing only if they would include Jim Shoulders in that as well.
Right. Hey, there's another Mount Rushmore type guy.
Unbelievable, yeah.
I mean, to this day, I mean, has anybody won more buckles or trophies than Jim Shoulders?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I know at one time he was the most accomplished rodeo athlete of all time. Whether that's been eclipsed, I don't know. But it was brilliant for me to, you know, I was at a bull riding event. I don't remember what year. It was at the Pavilion, Fairgrounds Pavilion. And Jim Shoulders was there to make an appearance, just kind of wave at the crowd and just to be there, you know. And he was standing near one of the chutes, and a bull raised up in the chute and caught him and threw him, I don't know, 8 or 10 feet down onto the concrete. And he sustained terrible injuries. I mean, like a broken pelvis and broken ribs and it was just awful. And I guess I gave him some time to recover and then went and spent a day with him in Henrietta. Property. And toughest rodeo cowboys are tough anyway. What a tough classic guy. And so, yeah, I don't know what it is about Henrietta, but, you know, salt of the earth, great people, and two of the more accomplished athletes in their respective sports of all time came out of Henrietta, Oklahoma. And Troy did remind me last week. Well, I reminded him, and then we talked about it, but he could have signed with the New York Mets out of Henrietta instead of doing football. And he asked for way too much bonus money, and they said, "Good luck at OU." So he asked for more bonus money than Darryl Strawberry had gotten. So
Wow.
they said, "Good luck at OU." He said he just pulled that figure out of thin air. He didn't. He said, I didn't even have any comprehension of what $200,000 even looked like, but that's what I asked for."
Yeah,
And they said, "Good luck at OU."
that's fun. Wow.
Yeah.
Bill Haston, thanks so much for joining us on the Tulsa World Scene podcast. I appreciate your stories. Appreciate you sharing all the Troy Aikman stuff. Been doing this for a long time, been doing good work, so I appreciate you. But let's people can see this on tulsaworld.com or whatever platform you get podcasts in. But thank you so much for joining us.